Donny van de Beek was never told he needs a personal analyst to scout Manchester United, and because of it, his stocks are in the ground. Now look, fortunately for Donny, his career isn't completely stuck in the mud, but he's not the first footballer and he probably won't be the last footballer to make this mistake. So why do footballers need personal analysts, you ask? To begin with, I think it's important to understand profiles, and no, I'm not talking about that kind of profile. I'm talking profiles in the context of football, right? A lot of people don't necessarily understand what profile means, and I don't think there's a set definition for it anywhere, so I decided to ask a bunch of different analysts what they thought profile meant, how they would define it, and my favorite answer actually came from an account called @ManUtd. Go check him out. And what he basically said is profile effectively means a player's style, right? Understanding what a player likes to do in terms of their tendencies. It doesn't necessarily tell you how good a player is at something, but it just tells you what they like to do and what they don't like to do. Now, to give an example, right, let's look at Barcelona. When we look at Barcelona's right-hand side in attack, they have Adama Traoré and Ousmane Dembele. Now, these two are very much similar profiles in that they're two players who both like to play wide, take on players, and cross the ball into the box. Now, that's an understanding of these two players' profiles. It doesn't tell us who's a better player. It doesn't tell us how good these two are at taking people on, playing out wide and crossing the ball. It just tells us that that's what they like to do as players. Now, of course, anybody with eyes knows Ousmane Dembele is a much better player than Adama Traoré. And not just a better player, he can do more, right? Ousmane Dembele is such a talented player that he's not just limited to being that in terms of his profile, but that is a basic understanding of those two players within the context of Barcelona's team. Some other examples of players with similar profiles are Saka and Mahrez, Tomiyasu, Kyle Walker, Konate, Van Dijk, right? There's plenty of examples out there in football. But what's important is that ultimately profiles tell you a lot about what a player is, and this is very important for players and for managers, right? As a manager, you want to guarantee you're getting the right profile to fit the tactic that you have. And as a player, you want to be joining a team that requires your profile. If you join a team that doesn't require a profile, you're going to be forced to play another style of play that doesn't fit what you're comfortable with, and that's never ideal unless you're in a situation where the team that you're joining lacks your profile, but it's actually because they've needed your profile, right? i.e. Harry Kane, right, with Man City. Man City don't have anybody that's Harry Kane's profile, but they wanted to bring somebody in so that they could put that in their squad and fit that into their tactic because it's something they desperately need. So, what is Donny van de Beek's profile? What is Donny as a player? This is something that's become so complicated within the Manchester United fan base, but it's simple. Donny van de Beek is a Ramdeuter. Now, a lot of people might hear that and go, what on earth is a Ramdeuter? Ramdeuter was a term used to describe Thomas Müller a couple years ago, and essentially it's German and it roughly translates to space invader or space investigator. Other examples of Ramdeuters include Kai Havertz and Dele Alli, right? These are players who like to find pockets of space, investigate the space, invade the space to operate in so that they can score goals, get assists, right? And that is exactly what Donny van de Beek does. Shout out to my guy United Arena once again. He made these visuals here about Donny van de Beek from back when he was at Ajax, and they're very telling about what and who Donny van de Beek is as a player and his style of play. In this first one, goalmark 27 from the 40 goals since the 2017-18 season have been one-touch finishes, and another 7 have been 2-touch finishes. And look where they all are, in the box. That's where Donny wants to be. The second one here, 127 of the 236 shots since the 2017-2018, I think that should say, season from within centralized locations. Again, he likes to be central. He likes to be between the lines in these pockets of space, getting 1-2 touch finishes, quick football. This one was really interesting to me, right? Because this says a lot about his actual quality as a player, where if you look, where did Donny van de Beek make incisive passes? Now, if you want to know what incisive passes, they are just sort of the killer passes, right? These killer balls that everybody sort of knows about when you play football from a young age. And when you look at these are the successful ones in yellow. All of these are just from basically within the box, right? If Donny van de Beek is in the box, he can make a killer pass and he can finish you off or get a goal, get an assist, right? Whereas when you look at the unsuccessful ones, instantly, a lot of the unsuccessful ones are from outside of the box because he just isn't as effective from outside the box as he is in the box. Donny van de Beek, I should basically just call him Donny van de Box, right? He wants to be in the box. because that's just where he's most effective as a player. Now, of course, Donny van der Beek is a player of high quality, very, very talented lad. And so what that means, especially considering that he came up through Ajax, is that he can play elsewhere on the pitch. Like, if you tell him to play deeper, he can do that because he's a quality footballer, right? But he is just much more effective high up the pitch. And you can say the same for all the other sort of Ramdeuters, right? In theory, yeah, you can play Kai Havertz deeper. We've seen that at Chelsea a couple of times. In theory, you can play Thomas Muller deeper, right? In theory, you can play all these Ramdeuters and other players deeper, but they are just better higher up the pitch, operating in those pockets of space, scoring goals, getting assists, right? And that is Donny van der Beek. But sadly for Donny van der Beek, that isn't a player that was required at Manchester United. And a personal analyst could have told Donny all of this quite easily, right? You look back early in the video, profiles are all about how players can consistently offer value to football teams. And ultimately, although Donny and Bruno, for example, are both players who can offer value to teams in different ways, when it comes to Manchester United's tactic and the way they want to play, Ralf Rangnick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer both decided that the way Bruno offers value to a team consistently is more important and fits the tactic they want to play better than the way Donny does that. And look, there are other examples of this. Look at Coutinho when he went to Barcelona. Very similar profile to Messi. Of course, we know who the better player is. And so one, he was never going to be able to play in the same team with Messi because two of that profile in the same team doesn't work. And two, he was never going to be able to compete with Lionel bloody Messi, right? Like, he was never going to get in the team ahead of him. And so it was clear that was just never going to work, right? Two players who are very ball dominant, ball to feet players who like to be playmakers and create for the teams. It just wasn't going to work out. But you see, Coutinho goes to Aston Villa where his profile is very much needed in that team, and Gerrard very much wanted to fit that kind of player into the tactic. And now Coutinho looks alive. He looks like a great player, and hopefully he can stay at Villa and continue to show that he is an elite footballer. And as much as it seems like I'm maybe just putting it all on the players for making this mistake, it's not just them, right? Like, managers also have that responsibility, and we're seeing it in the Premier League this season with Leicester. Brendan Rodgers and Leicester, they've consistently brought in a lot of players who people think are quite good players, right? Impressive players. But ultimately, they're a team full of players who are all of different profiles. And so what happens is when you eventually lose a player, inevitably to suspension or injury, the players you have coming in are different profiles, and so they don't fit the tactic, and so you end up having to play a whole different way, almost sort of game to game, which is why Leicester have been so unsuccessful this season. And so all I'm saying is that as a football community, players, managers, fans, we all need to value profiles a lot more. Profiles are so important, and they are almost sort of the priority when it comes to actually understanding how good players are and how players fit into tactics as a whole. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of the others on my channel as well. Going to be pumping out a lot more content very, very soon, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys all soon.